Hello traders, welcome to the next Our Trading Up YouTube channel. So we're going to look at the weekly forex forecast, a quick review of the delivery of price on Monday and also today being Tuesday. We're going to look at how you guys would have leveraged the weekly forex forecast outlook and setup that was shared in the YouTube community, and then you would have executed. So what we can see here, I made reference to this monthly fair value gap, and within the monthly fair value gap we identify the weekly fair value gap and this other weekly fair value gap, and this is a consequent encroachment of the monthly bullish fair value gap. This is the daily time frame, and we made reference also to this daily inversion fair value gap, how we saw price mitigated the weekly bullish fair value gap here, which is within the monthly bullish fair value gap after price took out the sell side liquidity, and we saw bullishness to the upside, and this was Friday's candle. So I called our attention to the fact that what we have here is that price swept sell side liquidity, which is actually the swing low points, and we saw the bullishness to the upside, but volume failed to close above this bearish candle, this daily bearish candle that took out the sell side liquidity. But then we can clearly see we have bullish colored candle, but that means that we are not really having strong bullish momentum, since what we can see is that the bearish candle that was printed, volume of the bullish candle failed to close above the high of the bearish candle. I told us to anticipate the likelihood to see that price will continue bearish to the downside, but if then Monday gives us bullish impulse to the upside, taking out this high points, then we're going to look forward to see how price trade into this weekly inversion fair value gap. So that was the two setups or two perspective I pointed out to us, and what we can clearly see here is that we have the bullish movement, and what we can see that Monday gave us now what bearish movement to the downside. So now we can see we are still trading within the weekly bullish fair value gap, which is within the monthly bullish fair value gap. If price is continuing bearish to the downside, we're looking forward to the second weekly bullish fair value gap, which is within the monthly bullish fair value gap, and you can see is in confluence to the consequent encroachment of the monthly bullish fair value gap. So let's go to the 4-hour time frame. So in the 4-hour time frame, when we started seeing price delivery, in the 4-hour time frame last week in the weekly forex focus video, I told us to pay attention to this bullish order block. We really did not have yet a market structure shift here in the 4-hour time frame to even want to build bullish expectation to this inversion fair value gap. But due to how the market is, we have to be flexible with the narrative we are seeing, with the price on delivery we are seeing in the charts, and to expect the possibility of either bearish or bullish movements. But clearly from structural perspective, we do not really have a market structural shift here. What I pointed out to us guys was the fact that price here took out all this buy side liquidity, and I told us that we could see the possibility that price may respect this bullish order block, since what we saw was how price was reacting to it, and we are seeing the volume of price closing above the bullish order block, and then we could see bullishness. But with this printed bearish order block, I told us we have to wait to see how price breaks through this. If price breaks through this and we have successful close of price above this daily inversion fair value gap, then we could look forward for a return to retest and we have bullishness. So I told us again clearly that if price breaks through this bullish order block in the 4-hour time frame, we should wait for price to retest it and we have bearish continuation to the downside. So clearly now from the 4-hour time frame, we can see here we have buy side liquidity sweep and buy side liquidity sweep. We had this displacement. Price reacted at the bullish order block, but we can see that price failed to give us impulse to the upside. What happened on Monday is we had price fell to the downside. So from the 1-hour time frame, we had the first retest and then this bearish continuation. What we can see in the 4-hour, this candle dipped into the bullish order block, took out the low. Price closed below the consequent encroachment of this bullish order block. So in the 1-hour time frame, let's get to the 1-hour time frame. So you can see the first retest I spoke about we had the 4, price closed below the consequent encroachment of the 4-hour bullish order block, and we had this return to the upside, and we had bearish continuation back into this weekly bullish fair value gap, and another reaction to the upside and bearishness. So clearly the concepts we used in executing or looking forward to how we would have taken entry in the dollar index. Basically, I don't trade the dollar index, but we make use of the dollar index so that we have a better perspective to the narrative in the Euro USD, the GBP USD, and other major peers. So let's get to the 15-minute time frame, guys. So here in the 15-minute time frame, this was the open price on Sunday. So clearly now what we can see, we had this, you can see clearly we had consolidation here, price accumulation. Also Sunday gave us more accumulation. Through Monday we started having this accumulation of price. So what we can see clearly is, let's turn on the session indicator so that you can see what we looked into in the markets. So what we can see here is we had the Asia session. Those of you that are in the mentorship program, you clearly understand session trading. So what we can see here is we have the Asia session high and the Asia session low. So clearly, you know, the dollar index is bearish. So, you know, if you're expecting a movement of price, when you've established the daily perspective or the weekly perspective in a lower time frame, you have to look for the sponsorship zone you'll be looking forward to see price mitigate and give us the word movement in the intended or established buyers. So what we can see here is we look forward to see if price violates the bullish order block, then we take a bearish movement of price to the downside. So what we can see again here from the 15-minute time frame is this. We have the Asia session high and the Asia session low. What we can see is that during the London session, price traded and took out the high. Volume failing to close above that. And then we had the fall of price. We can see this displacement. So clearly also, when you look into this, what you can see is we had this pullback, price pushed to the upside, took outwards, buy side liquidity and a displacement. Price broke this low point, giving us what? A fair value gap. So this was your entry to look forward to see how price return into the fair value gap, mitigate that. And then you trade into the 4-hour bullish order block. And clearly in this regard, you'll be aiming for the consequent encroachment, meaning the mean threshold of the 4-hour bullish order block. Clearly, if you waited for price to break through the 4-hour order block, and what you can see, we had displacement after price mitigated this first bearish fair value gap. After this displacement, this is the what? Accumulation. Price gave us the manipulation during the London session, and then started giving us what? The distribution. Now what we can see is we had a pullback, and New York gave us what? Redistribution. So I gave us the concept of our expectation during trading sessions in the mentorship program. So what we can see here, we have this displacement, price created this fair value gap. So we can see how price again returned during the New York session, and then we had what? Redistribution to the downside on Monday into the weekly bullish fair value gap. So we can see here, this is the delivery on Tuesday. We had this pullback into the 4-hour bullish order block. Price again returned to retest that. What we can see here is we have the Asia session. Price during the London session took out the Asia session high point, and we had this displacement to the downside. If I was to execute an entry in dollar index to continue bearish to the downside, I'll be looking forward to see how price return into this fair value gap, and then I continue bearish to the downside. What we can see is that price didn't return into this fair value gap. We can just see that price continued bearish to the downside, taking out yesterday's low points. So this is what we saw, or we can clearly see in the delivery in the dollar index. So let's check out the Euro USD pair. This is the daily time frame in Euro USD. So we had this low point, which gave us the weekly bullish fair value gap. We had this inversion fair value gap. We are looking forward to see the possibility of price deep into that and giving us bullishness. But then when we translate price more into lower time frames, we saw into the possibility of price just continuing bullish to the upside. And what we can see is that we had bullish continuation. This was the candle price printed last week, Friday. Monday, we had bullishness. Now we can see Tuesday bullishness taking out this high. and we can see price reacting into the monthly bearish fair value gap zone within the weekly bearish fair value gap, that is within the monthly bearish fair value gap. So let's check the 4-hour time frame. So in the 4-hour time frame, I called our attention to this bullish order block in the 4-hour, how we saw price reaction. And last week I shared the setup in the Euro USD pair, which is displayed in the screen here, how we wanted to see bullishness to the upside to take out this high points. So clearly now we can see price dip to the downside into this 4-hour bullish order block, and we can see how price traded to the upside. What we saw on Friday was, this was the candle price printed on Friday. This was the last candle on Friday. So I told us to look forward to the possibility that if price trades and violates this bullish fair value gap, then we could see what bearishness to the downside, where price will regard this as trend line liquidity. And then price will sweep the last week low point, mitigating this inversion fair value gap, and we have bullishness. But from the 1-hour time frame, let's get to the 1-hour time frame. So in the 1-hour time frame, what we can see is how price was reacting within this bullish fair value gap. So price mitigated the 4-hour order block. This was my entry last week on the setup I shared in the free Telegram community, and the stop loss was here. Price returned to the downside, took out that stop loss, and price continued. But then when I saw how price gave us this distribution to the upside, clearly now what we can see is we have this mitigation block, because this is the last up close candle that gave us the bearish movement. So internally we also have the structural perspective, but then this is in confluence with this fair value gap. So clearly I marked out this bullish order block that was violated to the downside, because price printed this bullish order block, but then we had bearishness to the downside. So I expected to see this reclaim price. In confluence we have what? This mitigation block. So we can see clearly how price return. So during the weekly forecast, I told us if price is going to go bearish, it means that price would have to violate this, and then we'll start looking forward to bearishness. But then if price respects this bullish fair value gap, we should look forward to bullishness to the upside, where we are aiming to see price takes out this buy side liquidity. I pointed out the fact to how price reacted at this 1-hour bearish order block and gave us bearishness. So I told us that if price doesn't violate, most especially the bullish order block it created here, then we will look forward to what? Bullishness to the upside. And that was what we can now see in the 15-minute time frame. Looking also at the session, what we can now see is from last week I already had my entry here. So this was Sunday opening price. So we have the opening price on Sunday here, and now we can see how price went to the downside below the opening price and bullishness. So this is the Asia session, this is the Asia session low, the Asia session high points. So we can see during the London session traded to the downside, taking out Asia session low points, just the way in the dollar index, the London session traded to the upside, taking out the Asia high. So we can see now we had this fall. This is the up close candle before the bearishness that took out this sell side liquidities, and now we have impulse to the upside, leading to change in state of delivery. No clear reason to really want to execute a trade here. We do not have a fair value gap here, so price continued bullish. So this was your entry zone. This is the zone to anticipate to take an entry during the London session, to have New York session giving us redistribution. So London took out sell side liquidity, gave us the manipulation. We had distribution. Now we have what's this fair value gap. So clearly we are expecting to see our price trade to the downside, mitigate the fair value gap, and then we have redistribution during the New York session. And clearly that is what we can see happen here, because now look at price fell, price distributed. So we have buy side to be taken here, buy side. So we're expecting to see a pullback and redistribution. So this is Tuesday price delivery here. Price, this is the Asia session. If you're expecting bullish continuation, this is it. Price took out the what? Asia session low points. Now we had what? The distribution to the upside. Price created this fair value gap. So if we're looking forward to an entry, if possibly we do not execute our trade from the low of the Asia session, because we do not really have a clear sponsorship zone here. So I did not trade this particular trade setup, since already I had my trade setup from last week here. The best was just to trail the stop loss. So now we can see price gave us this fair value gap, but no return into that before the bullish continuation. So this is what we clearly can see in the Euro USD. I just said, let me give you guys a very quick review. So guys, if you're interested in our mentorship program, you can do well to check the comment section and contact us so that we can guide you on how to enroll for the mentorship program. Mind you, we just have very limited slots. We just work with 5 students per batch. So if you're interested, you can check the comment section. So cheers guys, and God bless you all.